I've advised superintendent to hold their buses and to delay their release at this point, shelter in place. So advised him to hold his release time until we make sure everything's cleared, hold the buses, and also delay his release on his school. All units be advised, at this time this is radar indicated. We do not have any visual of anything producing yet. This is radar indicated. Scott, they're extending the warning up to Jacksboro area. They've added another warning to the Jacksboro area, so just letting you know that. It's going to be set in the fourth or the three quarters of Palafetta County, Young County, and Jack County. It's going to be moving northeast. Go ahead, Brush One. Possible Barton Chapel area on Highway 4. It looks like we're going to have some rotation there. Yeah, that's a good copy. I'm looking at that on the radar, and you've got strong rotation indicated. The Station 1's going to confirm that tornado, and we got a large debris field behind it. Just passing Jacksboro on the west side now. Go ahead. Animal shelter just got tore up. Came through here. 417 SO responding 380 in Wesley Chapel. Attention Jacksboro Fire Department, attention Jacksboro Fire Department. All personnel respond to station. All personnel respond to station. 303, command, be advised, I've got debris at 380 and Wesley Chapel. 380 and Wesley Chapel, heavy debris. Correction, all units, we got here 380 Hillcrest trees in the highway. So be advised, I've got debris across Highway 380. I'm going to need some assistance out here with some deputies. Let's go ahead and set tones for all county fire departments. We're going to need assistance out here.
National Weather Service said there is a confirmed tornado located 7 miles southeast of Boston, moving northeast at 35 miles an hour.
Be advised, that's coming into city limits. That's where that's going to be tracking, city limits of Jacksboro. Kastner, Jackson, be advised, we have eyes on it from the city. It's going to be kind of hard to see, Brush One, but it's pretty big. Yeah, good copy. It's rain wrapped. Yeah, 10-4 from here. I can see the bottom half of it, and it's pretty wide. Very safe. Also, be advised, I've got several windmills with the blades ripped completely off of them. Folded over. 417 SO. There's a lot of houses damaged on Berwick Road. Trees down, I can't get through. Be advised, 110 Berwick is extreme damage, but everybody inside of it is 10-4. Units going to the elementary, you're going to have to go off 6th Street. So come northbound on 6th Street. You're going to have to cut through the neighborhood. We got power lines down across the roadway.
March 21st. It was about 3 o'clock. I actually had just sent a drill plan for a tornado drill we were supposed to do later that week out to the teachers. Walked into the front office, and I told Claudia and Jennifer, I said, hey, if there's ever a tornado, we're going to do this, 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 and this. And about that time, somebody came in the office and said, hey, we're under tornado warning. And I thought they were joking at first. And I said, no, what? They said, yeah, there's a tornado warning. So I immediately called Mr. Burnett. I called Chief Haynes, and there still wasn't warnings on everybody's phone.
I get a phone call from Mr. Qualls, and he's like, hey, are you getting any storm alerts? And I'm like, no, Michael, I haven't. And ironically, about that time, my phone buzzed, and I looked, and it was the first tornado warning that came across. And
we made the decision, Mr. Burnett and he contacted me. We made the decision to hold routes because of the weather. There was a potential for bad weather, and we had all my drivers at the transportation office, and we were just kind of sitting waiting. I'd actually gone up to the admin office to look at the weather. We talked with Chief Haynes, and
as soon as I hung up the phone, Chief Haynes calls me and said, "Hey, we're getting some weather alerts." He said, "Do you mind if I come to your office and we'll just track this together?" And I said, "Yes, please. I need the advice." So I think that was I felt blessed that Chief Haynes came to my office so that I could hear the radio chatter of our storm spotters throughout the county as they were tracking the storm coming into Jack County. And
I literally stood on the patio out in front of the administration building with Mr. Burnett. I walked down to the red light there at that intersection, and looked back to the west, and that's where I stood the whole time.
They said, "Yeah, we are actually warning. Let's keep all the buses. Let's keep everything there. But if there's parents there to pick up their kids, go and let them get home so they can get to shelter in case there was a tornado." Fast forward, it got to the point where I was outside putting kids in cars, and you could just tell the sky was different and things were changing, and then you could almost just feel things begin to shift. At that time, we made the decision to get all the kids out of the gym and into the safe halls and begin getting parents into the building.
As we start getting damage reports on the, around the 380 area, Wesley Chapel, that's when I communicate to all of our principals through text message that get in your storm shelters now. This is headed towards Jacksboro.
It was blowing in really quick, and I thought, okay, I'm going to go to the elementary, see if they'll let me go in and sit with Morgan because she doesn't like storms. So that's when I realized I get to the elementary. They're not letting any more kids leave. I walk in there, and they allowed us to come in to the elementary to sit with our kids. So that's when I realized really how bad it was getting, because they weren't letting any kids. They were not letting any kids leave.
But I really did hear this small whisper that was you need to take the kids, and you need to go inside. And I'm not making it to the station. We walk in, and I'm asking Mr. Claus, where are the boys? And he's like, your kids are safe. You're not gonna get to them right now. They had that barricade pulled down, but before you get to the cafeteria, it's this metal barricade. So down that hallway was a lot of parents and a lot of other siblings.
They said we could come around and sign our children out. And so we pulled around to the front of the school, and I went in to get my kid, and they said, we're not letting them go. You can come in, but they can't leave yet. Not until we get the all clear from the upper administration. I said, well, I got to go get my dad. They said, well, hurry, we're locking the doors. So I went out and got my dad. He just had surgery, and we come in, and they ushered us through the library. They already had the roll-up doors in both the storm shelter hallways closed. So they led us through the library into if you're facing the school, to the left side. And so we go into the hallway, and we're right by that library door. And kids are all thinking it's a game, and and they're getting rowdy, and the teachers are about ready to pull their hair out, because we've never experienced anything like this. And I found my two kids, and they're not listening as well. They think it's a game just like all the rest of the children do. And I made them get down on the floor, and I said, look, it's crisscross applesauce. Sit on the floor, face the wall, put your backpack over your head.
My boss called because they said it was on the ground in Bryson, and told me to get off the route and get back to town somewhere safe. And the first thing I thought was go to the school and get Kaylee. Pulled in the driveway and got a strong, overwhelming gut feeling, which now I realize it was probably God telling me not to stay there. And Kaylee got mad. She said, Dad, I just want to stay in the house. I said, no, we got to get out of here. We're going somewhere else.
So my wife was just getting home from school, and drove by the house and said, hey, we got some storms coming in. Let's go let's go park underneath somewhere. Let's get this truck out of the harm's way, put your car in the garage. And we grabbed our teenage son, and he was home a little bit early that day. And so we loaded up, and we found a car wash there on Main Street to pull under. And it was very obvious that this was a really strong storm.
The feeling that you get and the sound, literally it's deafening. If you put your hands over your ears, you can hear just that. It's almost like this muffled silence, but it's also a pressure. And I really felt like all those windows were going to go at any moment.
Early that morning, my phone had gone off with the emergency alert, and I called dispatch and I asked them if we were a tornado warning, and they said we were, because there was a tornado that was tracking towards Jack County. When I got to work, got a little more information and heard that it was tracking a path that would take it possibly between Jacksboro and Bryson. So I was going north on North Main in front of the elementary school. Did not see anything. I didn't see the tornado at all. It was raining. It was raining so hard I actually pulled off to the shoulder. There was a pickup that had pulled in front of me, and then I went around the pickup, pulled off on the shoulder. As soon as my vehicle came to a stop, I heard something hit the front of my vehicle, and then it was felt like I got hit. Well, I got hit from the side, but it was a very strong impact on the side. It deployed all the airbags, side of the vehicle, knocked all the glass out. And when it kicked the back end of my vehicle around, then I could see the swirling, the debris flying in front of the vehicle. And at that time, it went so quick I had to go back and watch my dash cam video. And the only three things that I said was, "Dear God," 3 times, louder each time, because I didn't know if he could hear me the first time because it was really loud. Because I just didn't know what else to say.
I remember running outside to kind of get the last group of parents who were coming in. The rain was coming towards me, but yeah, it was moving away. That I remember that. And then you probably have seen the video footage of me jogging up the hallway to get the key that lowers the shelter doors, and I was running back to close the parents in to their hallway. And at the time, I didn't realize that it was probably a blessing that I didn't get the thing down, because the hallway I was in is what collapsed. And had I shut the door and got everybody in there, then I obviously would have been trapped in the hallway. So we all ran down that hallway, and chaos, obviously. And then I just remember having that feeling of, man, this is real.
You could just hear it was like it was growling, just, and so you could hear the sound, and so it was incredibly frightening. But it was almost like I was almost like in a trance by it, because I'm watching it happen and I can't move. I mean, I was in this bathroom, but I couldn't move. And then again, I was counting, and within 5 seconds, I hear this huge crash. And my mom said, "What was that?" Because we heard glass shatter. And I just said, it probably sucked a window out. The best thing that could have happened, because the pressure completely you could just hear it. It's like it just released this pressure in the home. From my back porch, I can look to the west and see the elementary school. And all I could say was, "Oh God, oh God," because all I could think about were the children. And I knew that it was that time of day that the kids would be being picked up. I had watched the parents, go around that corner right by my house, as they do every day. I knew that there were lines of, cars. I didn't realize the magnitude of it until I stepped out on my back porch.
Saw stuff start flying, and it was constant thunder. The thunder just never stopped rolling for like 15-20 minutes. That just constant thunder roll. We ran out and started knocking on neighbors' doors and trying to make sure everybody was all right. And I thought, oh no, my dog's in the house. So I hadn't even seen my house at this point. And I jump in the pickup and go down there and have to drive over power lines and everything else. My house was leveled. And I found my dog where the living room walls had come down and landed on one of my love seat. And she was just in there on her little teepee. Not hurt. I heard her scratching around and I went to throwing walls off. Got my dog out. If I hadn't trusted or believed and been hard-headed like I usually am and just stayed at the house, we probably wouldn't be here. I mean, I knew we didn't need to be there.
I was sitting in the front door with storm door about 5 feet away, and I saw the barbecue grill go by and I saw the roof of my porch go by, and the next thing I knew, the wind blew in that glass, and all I could think to do was cover my face and protect my face. And when it was all over with, I had blood all over me from cuts on the from the window. My wife called and asked me if I was okay. I said yes, but I need help. She came over, and when I looked out, there were trees down everywhere, and the roof was gone in my house, and it could have been a lot worse. I know there were cars that were torn over. I don't know how to describe how blessed we are that we were not injured more and damage was done more.
You start hearing, you can just feel the vibration, and then so I'm sitting there with her, and there was the door that was shut in the hall, and that door starts coming up, and you can start feeling the wind rush through there. You can hear the glass breaking, and at that point, that's when I knew how serious it was. There was 2 dads that actually jumped on the door to hold it down. 2 dads jump on the door, and they were able to hold the door down, but you could just feel the pressure of all that wind coming in at the bottom.
I don't know, it's like the air was sucked out of you when it hit. I'm not sure how to. There was maybe a change in barometric pressure, and it's like the ground rumbled. I don't know how to explain it. It's the weirdest, eeriest feeling you could ever go through in your life. Then the roll-up doors started rattling. The one towards the front of the school started coming up. There was a smaller guy down there holding it down. You can see backpacks near it sliding across the floor. It was absolutely, and the no lights. The lights had already gone out.
The tornado was so heavy at that time that, I couldn't see anything. It was I don't know if it was the rain or what, but it was just like a green wall, and you could hear everything hitting the truck and stuff. So I started thinking, okay, what do I need to do for the boys, because they were in the truck. So I told them to unbuckle, get in the floorboard, and put something on over, because we had a bunch of blankets and stuff in the car, because I don't clean out my truck, but we put the blankets over them, and I just kind of sat there and I prayed.
I got a phone call from Brian Isbell, and Brian said, "Jack, where are you?" And I said, "Well, Brian, I'm driving home." And immediately he said, "Where's Dorothy?" I said, "Well, she's with me." He said, "Where's Brandon?" I said, "Well, he's in the truck." "Brian, what's going on?" And he said, "There was a tornado." And I just said, "Brian, did it hit my house?" I don't know why I said that. Just did. He said, "Jack, the house is gone. It's gone."
Up in my truck, and I start heading towards the elementary. I get a call from Starla Sanders, our high school principal. She's telling me the high school gym wall is collapsed. So I know it's serious. The closer I get to the elementary, there's trees down, there's power lines down. I'm driving around trees, over power lines. I was not going to be denied access to the elementary. And as I pulled into that parking lot and I see cars tossed around. I see insulation blowing everywhere, sheet metal everywhere. I just said a prayer, and I'm just like, God, let's just reassure me that everyone in that building is safe. And I just had a sense of calmness come over me, that it's going to be okay. Just do your job.
My wife called me and she told me, she said, the tornado has hit the high school. And she asked about our kids. And at that point, I realized that we had to get anyone who was in the high school evacuated. Didn't know how many were there, but I just dispatched all of our drivers with large vehicles to evacuate the high school. And I, of course, was the lead one, and I drove through town. I drove like I had red and blue lights on top. Man, I was headed over there, and then when I got to the high school, that's when I saw the insulation blown across the road, and I realized there were about 450 people in the elementary, which that changed me. I went straight to the elementary. I never went to the high school.
As I'm approaching the elementary, there's down telephone poles, wires everywhere. I see some overturned cars up in the front of the elementary, but I'm not able to get up there because there's too much debris in the roadway. So I had to back up and go through the neighborhood and then come in on North 6th Street that way. Well, when you come in on North 6th Street, it's like a combat zone. It's a bad, your first thought is, I know that there's tornado-proof hallways there because we train there. But my immediate thought was, this is not going to be good. There's no way that we could not have some casualties on this deal. Just no way. There's a back way into that hallway, and so we take the back way into the hallway, immediately open up the door, and it's just, cheers of, people, happy for us to be there. And literally, I kind of got to yell like, hey, let's zip it for a second. And is anybody hurt? Nobody was hurt. And then we start making our plan to do the reunification part of things.
After we got past the shock of what just happened, we got to the kids, and as this story's going to continue on, as we continue to talk about this, I began to see the story unfold of what had truly happened.
I go in, and the hallway is just, there's water in the hallway. The ceiling's coming down. You can see where the gym used to be. It's just open. And I was freaking out. I was looking for Sophia, and I will be forever grateful for the teachers of Jacksboro and the principal. Qualls did an amazing job. As soon as I ran inside, I was freaking out. Didn't really know what was going on. Brass was in my hands. Brayton was following behind me, trying to keep up. And, I had all the teachers saying, hey, we got Sophia over here. She's ready to see y'all. She's okay. And so that was very reassuring to have them say, hey, you're good,
When it had passed, it was still raining a little bit. I got out of my vehicle, went across the elementary school. We started checking the parking lot because there were a lot of overturned cars. And what struck me at that point as, what I realized at that point is there was a bus that was overturned at the front of the elementary school with a bunch of other overturned cars. I was out in the open and my car didn't overturn. Kind of made it all so eerie was I've got a heat alarm in my car for my canine, and it honks the horn SOS when the heat alarm goes off, because when I got impacted, it shut off the fuel system, my car died, the alarm went off. So I was over at the elementary school, can hear my horn honking SOS, which was kind of, apropos for what was going on at that point. Went back out and started directing traffic, and some people came along and saw my vehicle, asked if I was in the vehicle. And I said I was, and they said, you were lucky. And my reaction was, yeah, I was. So I was looking at the pictures and seeing the damage to my vehicle. The thing when I guess the realization set in that, you know, it wasn't luck, wasn't technology, but it was God protecting me, was the window, my driver's side window, right up by my head. There was a hole busted out in my window where a piece of lumber had come through and stuck in the headrest of my seat. There was shards of the wood also stuck in the window there, and there is no other way to explain that. That's not luck, that's God. You know, people a lot of times want to, you know, real quick to minimize God's miracles and God's hand. You know, every day God protects us from things we don't even see it. And I think we're just too quick to give credit to other things other than who it needs to go to, and that was God.
It's like, have you ever gone into a grocery store or the movie during the day, and then when you come out, it's night, and you're like, whoa, this is like a whole new world I'm stepping. I went in, it was day, I came out, it was night. And that's how it was. You went into school, this is Jacksboro, it's a normal day, and you come out and you're like, life has been changed. And my car was not in the same place. Whenever I came out, Chris goes, don't look over there. Don't look over at your car. And I was like, what? Okay, well, you know. He said that Chris was actually in his car. He said my car rolled like 5 or 6 times. Yeah.
And like I said, I prayed. I prayed for God's hand over all of us. You know, it was a very scary moment. Really, you know, I get chills, man, just talking about it, just because of the feeling, you know. The truck was lifting up. I mean, the back was trying to lift up. Like, it was very, very scary. The truck, you know, it maybe picked up just a little bit and moved a little bit to the side, but it didn't, you know, try to flip us over or nothing. I don't know if it was just because my truck is big or, you know, God's hand was on it, you know, keeping it down, weighing it down, you know, because I wouldn't have known what to do if we would have flipped over, and, you know, it was just something that was very movie-like. Like, I didn't expect to be in that situation ever in my life, and I don't want to be in that situation again.
We had went to the middle school, reunified all the families, come back to elementary. I was walking out to see my truck for the first time, and there was a camera there. And then I remember seeing the helicopters, and that's when I realized, whoa, this is big. What we just experienced was scary. It was something I hope I never have to go through again. And to see people respond the way they did, they were some of the bravest, most courageous moments I've ever experienced in my life. I saw teachers. I didn't see this, but I heard this. But there was teachers covering kids. There was teachers praying with kids.
I knew what had happened, but it hadn't registered. I was in shock. And then whenever we walked up on the hill to go get on the bus, that's when I saw that the gym had collapsed. And that's when I realized just really how severe the situation was. So honestly, it took me about 2 days. I didn't cry at all after it happened. It took me a good 2 days, and I got an overwhelming rush of emotions, and that's when I thank God for sparing not just me and my kids, my friends, my family.
It looks to me, as I look at that and the rotation, I think that tornado went right through the middle of our elementary gym. And to know that kids were in that gymnasium 10 to 12 minutes before that tornado hit, it's an absolute miracle. And what Mr. Qualls and his staff was able to accomplish is nothing short of a miracle.
Probably the most emotional part for me when I was there, and I heard someone say, no injuries, my mind immediately went to, we've got to get these people to a safe place where we can get parents back with their kids. That's paramount. But in the back of my mind, my 2 kids are in this building, and that's the part that I get choked up on when I say, hey, my kids are in here. And that was the hardest, and I think I expressed that to you. That was the hardest thing for me to suppress, to be able to try to get my job done and remember, hey, my kids are in here. And I just remember I'm loading families. There's parents, there's kids. I'm loading them on my bus, and my 2 kids walk around the corner of the bus, and I almost fell over. I mean, I just hugged them. I put them on my bus. I said, "You're not leaving me," and I kept them right there with me the rest of the time.
It gets me emotional. One of my favorite kids that I have a real great relationship with is River. Me and her are partners, and I'm not making this up, okay? But when I busted in the door in that hallway, okay, when we first got there, and I opened that door and I looked down, the first kid I saw, River, and she just grabbed me around my leg, Chief, So it's emotional.
It's unimaginable. I mean, you really can't, in my opinion, as a Christian, I can't do anything but see God's protection that day. And the other thing too is to watch community members come together. And I've been through some things personally, and I've had that love poured out, and I've had people who have reached out and held us and sustained us through really challenging times. And so that is another way that I see where people literally became the hands and feet of God. They reached out and they were loving on people. They were lifting others up. Everyone was taken care of immediately.
Our elementary teachers and administrators are just, they're heroes in my opinion. There's no doubt in my mind that they saved lives through their actions that day. I really feel like God's hand was upon us and helping us make those decisions on that day.
In theology, we have a term called common grace, which means that even those who may not openly profess Christ as their Savior, they would say, good people, good, decent, moral people, but they're not Christians. People who might have another faith how they perceive God. There is a goodness and a kindness of God that's bestowed upon them. That's common grace. And we saw common grace in our community, whereas God not only used His people to pour out into people who may not be followers of Jesus Christ, but He also used people who are not followers of Jesus Christ to pour into Christians. And we certainly saw that in our church. As we were able to be used of God to be just a small help to people in our community. The kindness of God towards me personally.
It's really a miracle that nobody was hurt out of all these, and it just goes to show you what God can do, I mean, he saved the town of Jacksboro that day, because it could have been, really bad.
But the goodness of God is the thing that I'd like to share today. Is I've always held to the premise that God is too wise and too powerful to make a mistake, and we need to trust Him no matter what. And God can pull you through anything if you can stand the pull. And so it was pretty scary to walk out there and see the devastation all through this whole area.
I think we initially reported that night 9 minor injuries. Maybe one person seen at the emergency room, and initially they thought that person had a broken femur, and then later on it was determined not to be broken, and it was just a contusion, So God was looking out for Jacksboro that day and Jack County.
I had people coming past me and they, I just heard rumblings of, hey, we heard your house was hit. And for me, I mean, it was just another one of those things that I felt like I needed to suppress, and we will deal with that once we get everybody where they need to go. And thank God for the staff members, Mr. Qualls, his staff, all those staff members in that building, keeping those kids safe, all the staff members at the high school, everybody at the middle school that was helping reunite once we got there. I mean, it was a total group effort of just people coming in and helping. So, I mean, I just thank God that they were there, but it was just when I heard our house was hit and it was bad. I heard it was bad at this point, and I'm just like, you know what? We have a job to do at this point. I will deal with the house when we get a chance. My kids are okay. My wife's okay. I can deal with the rest of it. So it was tough, but thank God to Chief Haynes. Thank God to Mr. Burnett. I mean, the thing that keeps running through my mind is God, I feel like, knew this was going to happen, and he put people in the place they needed to be in order to protect the kids and make the decisions when they did. And that's a miracle in itself. So that's the thing that I keep coming back to, is we were where we needed to be exactly. And every decision was made as quickly and with all the information they had. So I'm very decisive, and there's no doubt God had a hand in that.
So I just give all the glory to God. I honestly do. I just feel like God has had his hand on me as I made decisions and didn't second guess my decisions. I just knew we need to take action. Danger was coming. It was going to harm our kids, and I never wavered in that. And I think God just gave me the confidence to make those decisions.
As I was kind of trying to process that week of, what did God truly do here? The two words that always were like resounding everywhere I went was godly wisdom and courage. And I think it all begins with the people here in Jacksboro and the godly wisdom and courage that they received that day. And in order to receive that, you have to be tuned in to be able to listen to it. And so all these stories that you're going to hear and all these miraculous things, this was a miracle. I mean, I sit here and listen just to the things you guys are telling me today. It is truly, absolutely a testimony that needs to be shared. That kind of like y'all mentioned to me, that the goodness of God was here in Jacksboro in the midst of a storm. We hear the storm story all the time in the Bible about how Jesus was asleep on the pillow. No one ever probably thought that, of Jesus being asleep in that moment. But I can tell you right now, when I was going through the war, I'll just be honest, I wasn't thinking about Jesus in the moment. I was thinking about surviving. But I was focused on the storm. And I think what we're going to find out as we hear everybody's testimony is that the focus was on the storm that day, but the focus is fixing to become Jesus. And hopefully it will lead to some lives being changed. So,
verse that just came to my mind was like, to lean not on your own understanding. If you don't have the Holy Spirit living inside of you, if you don't have him holding your hand like in this life, if you don't hear that still small whisper, that makes me sad, and it's scary. That scares me. If I didn't have that, I would feel scared. I would feel full of fear. I would be overwhelmed by anxiety, because I have leaned on my own understanding enough to know that when I do that, I fall flat on my face. And eventually I got so tired of falling flat on my face that I said, like, oh, I don't want to do it my way anymore. Like, I want to do it your way. Like, clearly I can't do this on my own.
The school shouldn't have fared as well as it did. Not without God. There's a lot of things that don't make sense to me about that day. I mean, they make sense if you think about it. But the only thing that makes sense is God. This is the most protected community I've ever seen in my life, or even heard of. I mean, you hear about one house that's left standing in the middle of all the destruction. I mean, yeah, we had some damage. So what? We can rebuild. It didn't damage, it didn't take no life. I think there was 5 hospitalizations for minor injuries. That was the fast track through the ER, you know, oh, here's a Band-Aid. You know, let's wrap this up or whatever. That's it. How? That's what you have to ask yourself, how? You know, everybody knows the answer. You just got to be willing to accept it.
You can have the same peace that my wife and I had. We've trusted God for years, and He never has failed us. Never has failed us. And so, I just want to encourage you to be conscious of the fact that God loves you and has a plan for your life, and He'll help you. He'll bring you out when everybody else has thrown you to the side. He'll strengthen you and comfort you.
Looking back at it, I mean, on my video from my dash cam, it was the roof of a house that hit the side of my vehicle. You know, not many people can say that they were hit by the roof of a house and walked away. But I also know that it's given me a greater understanding of the goodness of God. That He is a loving God. He cares for us a lot. You know, sometimes He allows things to happen that get our attention. Something like this happens, and we all go to church, and there's always, you know, rising people in church after something bad happens. And then the longer it goes, well, things are going good now. We don't need God. And that's something that I think we all need God. Even people that don't believe in God, even people that are mad at God, don't go to church, God still spared their lives through this tornado. We shouldn't pick and choose when we're going to have a relationship with God, because you don't know when you won't have that chance anymore.
Just the way our community came together, and we were able to make life better for a little bit. And these kids out picking stuff up and helping, and I mean, it was just amazing. It was amazing to see that just day after day after day, a week into this, and people are still every day out there just helping clean up our streets. And you know, I think it brought us a lot closer, you know, and I think we needed that. I think Jacksboro needs that, and I firmly believe that God uses things to glorify Him, and I think this is one way that it glorifies God in this situation.
There's a blessing over Jacksboro, and I believe that. I mean, this is a good place. Great place to raise your kids. It's just, I wouldn't want to live anywhere different. Just always listen to what, I mean, you can call it a gut feeling, you can call it what you want. I believe that's the way God talks to us. In certain ways, you don't necessarily hear a voice, you just go with how He's making you feel at the time, what He's bringing to your attention. And just always trust that.
You're with your kids in that situation and not knowing where the boys were at, and then really fearing for what felt like hours, was just a couple of seconds, fearing you're not going to make it out of that situation. You look at things a lot differently. So I've really tried to work on myself to be a more patient person, just with situations, because you just never know when things can change quickly. You just never know what can happen in the blink of an eye. Don't take life for granted. Spend as much time as you can with the ones that you love. Try to not hold grudges. If you have an opportunity in life, whether it be, just any opportunity that you have, take it. Don't leave any what ifs, because you just never know when it can be the last day, the last moment. So if there's something that you want to go out there and do, and you want to go out there and achieve, then don't wait another day, because tomorrow's not promised.
God would rather you trust Him than anything. It's sweet to trust in Jesus, and oh, for grace to trust Him more. God loves you. God has a plan that is just amazing if you'll just look for Him in every situation. And the peace that my wife and I had through this whole process can be yours, because His peace transcends every storm that you can ever go through. There's peace in the midst of the storm. Trust Him, He loves you.
I just feel blessed. We've got a great team. We've got a great community. And so the takeaway is we're here for one another. We put our faith and trust in our Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ, and He's got us. And I'm just so thankful for the Jacksboro community, the support that our school has had through this difficult time. And it's important for me that our school support our community. And I know we've had lots of teachers and students go out in the community and help our neighbors. And I'm very proud of that fact.
Godly wisdom and godly courage. It's different. It's just different. And I know that there are still people that are struggling with trauma. I myself struggle still to this day with a little PTSD. Anytime there's a storm or a tornado warning, or even having to protect the kids at school, that's a lot. And I know that there's still people out there dealing with it. But I know we're brave, and I know we're strong, and I know we've got the courage. And God's hand was on us that day. And I've heard people talk about favor, God's favor, being on Jacksboro that day. And that gives me comfort too, to know that even in the crazy, mistake-ridden world that we live in, and that the things that we continue to day in and day out deal with in this life, that God can still find favor on us, and that He can still be glorified, and that His story can still be told even in the midst of a storm. That's a pretty special thing.
For me, my faith is everything. And when you go through things in life, if you don't have something that you can truly rely on and hold fast to when things go wrong, when there's challenges in life, when things can happen where you feel hopeless, I just feel like knowing the Lord is number one. Knowing the Lord and His sovereignty, accepting Him and His sovereignty over all things. The magnitude of being spared that day is just, the miracles that happened that day. So, the biggest, to me, the takeaway would be, it could have been the other way. We could have lost so much that day, but God. He had a bigger plan. He had a bigger plan. And maybe His plan that day was, you know what, people? let's get the main thing. Let's get this ship turned around. Let's become who we need to be for each other. Let's come together. Where's your focus? Redirect. You could use all kinds of describing words if you want. But, you know, I wouldn't even say it was a warning. I think more of anything, it was an act of love by God to just say, look, count your blessings.
Have faith in God. Trust in Him. Okay? I would like to, there's no doubt about it that He had a hedge of protection over our community. There are more people coming to church right now than there were last year. I think so. Whether it's a result of the tornado, I don't know or not, but I know one thing that, He watched over me, He watched over my officers, He watched over the community that I've been entrusted to protect. So, I want to work harder to make Him happy. I want Him to use me in the community the way that He wants me to be used.
How do you not see God in all of it? He moves in so many different ways, and it's once the commotion and the ruckus settles down, you'll come to it. A lot of people are like, oh, well, everybody's in the right place at the right time. Why was that? Why were they in the right place at the right time? It's just funny how all the small things add up to big things, and the big things add up to bigger things. And if you open your eyes, there's a giant at the end with his arms open,
We don't have to apologize because maybe it wasn't as bad as it could have been. It was bad enough, and it was hard. But it reminds us that we are, whether there is the loss of life, because I'm convinced that even if we'd have lost people that day, we would have responded the same way. And it is this: we are dependent upon God. We are utterly dependent upon God. And we are dependent upon Him, not just for the recovery of a natural disaster, but I'm dependent upon Him for the very next breath that I take. And so sometimes it takes the big things like this to remind us of the little things.
I have learned my whole life that I will probably never see God. I can't see faith. I've never seen Jesus. I only read about Him. I only have a book. I don't only have, but I have a book. I have the Bible to refer to. And I've learned about faith, and I've learned about believing in what I believe in my heart and confess with my mouth is true. But that day was real. I've heard the story of Jesus in the boat, asleep on the pillow, and His disciples were scared to death because they were focused on the storm. And yet Jesus came and he put His hand on that situation. He stopped the storm. We lived a story like that at biblical proportions. And I would just want to tell people that God is real. He loves you. And He has a story to tell. Look at your life and look at the trials and the tribulations that you're going through and understand that those are promised by Jesus. But the one thing that we have to give to other people is our testimony. And my testimony, and I think all the people that you've heard from today, is that God is real. He loves us. His favor is on you. And He never makes a mistake. He is 100% the best thing that we can have on our side in a storm.